Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Kidney Coach YouTube channel. I am naturopathic Dr. Fiona Chin, and I'm so excited today. I am joined by the amazing James Fabin from Dadvice TV. I've been trying to get him on our podcast for ages, and I've been blessed by the amazing Jessie Anna who connected us. So James runs it's the biggest YouTube channel on kidney disease on YouTube. He is, and we were just talking about this before, his whole motto is to give people with kidney disease, and especially those heading down the route of dialysis, hope, which is what his channel does. And I think what makes James really, really special is he's been and walked this journey. He knows it intimately. And I think what's amazing about him is, and we were just talking about this before, is he's really good. And I think we'll get into this, James, but you seem to have a really inquisitive curiosity brain. So you look at everything. And I think that's probably why you've been so successful in your endeavors to stay off dialysis. So I love his brain, how it works. So just the story he was telling me before. So James, I'm going to hand you the floor. Thank you so much for being on here. I'm so excited to hear your journey and for you to share it with us.
Well, thank you. Great to be here. And I always appreciate getting a chance to help talk to more people out there who either have kidney disease or know someone who has kidney disease, to show them that it's not all downhill. And sometimes always there are things you can do. How effective they are varies person to person. But my story starts just over 4 years ago, about 4.5 years ago. I had no interest in learning about kidney disease, knew very little about it. My mom had it, stage 3, and it didn't seem to be giving her any problem. So I pretty much just ignored it. Ate an awful diet, was not very active, didn't keep my blood pressure under control. And worst of all, I was in a pretty bad car accident. And for a year while I recovered from back injury, I took a lot of ibuprofen. And that was what pushed me over the edge. And you could go down to the local grocery store and buy a bottle of ibuprofen. It talks about, hey, pop 4 of them. It'll take care of the pain. It'll help you sleep. It looks safe. You can buy them everywhere. I had no clue just how dangerous something as simple as ibuprofen could be when taken for a long, extended period of time. And almost 1 year to the day of my accident, I got really, really sick. And I went into my family doctor. I was 100% certain I had food poisoning. Constantly, everything's coming up, a cough that wouldn't stop, a headache. There was just one problem after another. And he gave me some medication, sent me home, said, okay, we'll see you in a few days, see how you're doing. Well, the next day it was worse. And I went into the doctor, and as soon as I walked in, and when I say walked in, I struggled just to stand up and to walk. I was so slow. I had zero energy. And as you can tell right now, I'm a high energy person. I do not drink caffeine. It's late in the day here in Michigan, and I'm not at my best, but I am a high energy person. So if I slow down, something's wrong, or it's very, very late at night. Anyway, I got to my doctor, and he knew things were serious. And he told me, James, you got to go to the ER. You got to go to the emergency room. We're going to get some blood tests. This is serious. Something's wrong. And I remember telling him, well, I got some errands to run. Let me go run those real quick. I'll go later tonight or tomorrow. And he said, no, you got to go now. If you don't go, I'm going to call an ambulance. That's how serious this is. So I drove to the hospital, a local hospital, and it was difficult getting there. My vision had started to get blurry, extremely blurry, very hard to see. And luckily, I love tech, which is one of the things that helped me grow my YouTube channel. And I had all the cool stuff in my car so that it could help drive itself. It's not a self-driving car. But I remember it beeping and constantly pulling me back in the lane, keep me in the center. It was that difficult to drive, and I was driving very slow. I got to the hospital, and I knew I can't walk into the ER. I just don't have the energy. I'm just going to pull up to the door and just get out there. I'll park my car later. There's no way I can walk. I pulled up right in front of the ER. I opened my door, and I remember taking a step out of my car, 1 foot going out of my car, and then I collapsed. I blacked out. At that point, I actually had a heart attack. I remember waking up and they're pushing me through the doors. I remember hitting the doors and going through these doors into the ER. I remember being in a bed. I remember they're doing lots of different tests, and I was in and out of consciousness. I remember my arm burning like mad because I actually was extremely low on potassium. So they had to give me bags and bags of potassium through an IV, and it was just burning up my arm and into my chest. They admitted me to the ICU, which I spent a week there in the ICU. And I remember this doctor came in with this long name I had never heard of. I couldn't even pronounce nephrologist. And she came in and she's saying, oh, renal this, failure, dialysis, a lot of words that I didn't understand. I didn't know what they meant. And I had no clue. And she's telling me, oh, your glomerular filtration rate is this. And I was, is that good? And, next few minutes later, she's coming in. They kept doing blood tests like every half hour. Oh, now it's down to this. Oh, down. That's a good thing, right? And like, no, this is not a good thing. And what it ended up being was I was in kidney failure. My GFR was down to 8.
Wow.
And I was dehydrated from being sick for so long, throwing up. I tried to drink sports drinks. It was the only thing I seemed to be able to keep down. I couldn't eat very much. My labs were all over the place. I didn't understand them. And they wanted to put a port into my neck and start dialysis. I had no clue what dialysis was. And they're explaining it to me. And I said, well, how long will I have this thing in? How long will I be on dialysis? And they said, well, for the rest of your life, unless you can find someone to donate a kidney. And I said, well, how hard is it to find someone? And they said, well, it could take 5 to 10 years. And I realized, okay, this is not acceptable. No, I can't go on this machine. I've got work to do. I've got a trip coming up. I'm very active. I'm up there and training people and talking to people and on stage and stuff. No, I can't have these things in my neck and hooking up 3 times a day to this machine. And I did some research and I'm like, no, that's not the life for me. Something's wrong. There's got to be something that can be done. I don't need dialysis. And I remember this part really clearly because my wife was there and the doctor, she told me, she says, you need dialysis. If you don't, your wife's going to be picking out your casket in 45 days. You won't make it.
Voodoo curse.
Yeah. And I was like, whoa, no. I have 2 little tiny kids. We just bought a house. No, that's not acceptable. There's got to be an alternative. There's no way. I was just months ago out doing stuff, fine, and with no problem. Overweight, not eating healthy, not living a healthy lifestyle. But no, something's not right. Are you sure it's not food poisoning? I still thought it was food poisoning because I didn't understand. So I had my wife bring in my laptop computer. I ordered a laser printer from Amazon. It was delivered the next day with a whole case of paper and an extra toner cartridge. Brought all that into my the ICU room. I'm printing out, highlighting things. I'm reading all sorts of stuff. I'm emailing people all around the world, doctors, dietitians, anyone that had anything published about kidney disease. I'm sitting there, I'm looking at press releases. There's the media contact. I'm going to contact them. They're going to get me in touch with this person. I'm going to talk to them. People at hospitals, all over the place, universities. And I did a ton of research. I'm such a nerd and I love data. And it was crystal clear. Dialysis is very common in the United States when you start having kidney issues. There's no real, hey, let's try to fix this. Let's try to help you. Let's see if we can avoid or delay the need for dialysis. And while I was in the ICU, they got my GFR up to 13. And I felt better, not great, but I felt better. And I was certain, oh, no, I can get it way up. I can get it way up. I can eat right. I can do all the right things. My blood pressure, we got to get that under control. But as I'm researching, I looked up people who have kidney disease by country, the outcomes. Where does the United States rank? US of A, tons of money, all these resources. We got to be number one or number two. Well, we were at the top of the list, but we were at the top of the wrong list. We were the top of the list of people who don't do well being treated for kidney disease. In the United States, we throw them on dialysis early at times and just keep them there, and sadly, until they die, usually of heart failure or something like that. We don't do things. And I looked at these other countries that do so much better. And what was interesting is so many of these countries that were doing better were these teeny tiny countries I'd never heard of. Like, it almost felt like a third world country. I'm like, how can they be doing better? We've got all these giant hospitals that practically have like gold roofs on top of them, all this money spent on them, and the doctors pulling up in Porsches and Lamborghinis and stuff. We've got to be better. We've got all this money. And it ends up, as I researched, they focused on diet, what you can do, a better lifestyle. They didn't just throw people on dialysis. Many of these countries, dialysis wasn't really a viable option except for the very, very few. So they had to do things to help people live with reduced kidney function. Mm-hmm. And so I started looking at all this stuff. And of course, when you're sick, every little glimmer of hope looks great. So I'm looking at everything. I'm like, oh, there's got to be a supplement somewhere. Somebody missed a pill. This one pill that'll do it. I'm hopeful. I'm looking for everything. I'm doing research. I'm talking to people. And that's what took me to meeting a whole bunch of renal dietitians and all sorts of nephrologists and other people who work in the kidney community from around the world, listening to them and kind of piecing together, while working with my doctor, a plan. And my doctor, while I was in the ICU, he called and said, James, I know this is scary. Don't listen to your doctor. You don't need dialysis. I can help you. There's things we can do. You don't need dialysis. So when you get out of the hospital, come straight to me. And that made my wife feel better, because when the doctor said 45 days, I could be dead, my wife was in tears. So as soon as I got out of the ICU, it ended up being Thanksgiving. So right after Thanksgiving here in the United States, I went and I saw my doctor, and we put together a plan. And it was so simple. It wasn't complicated, but it was, okay, look, we're going to get your blood pressure under control, because that's just ruining your kidneys. My blood pressure was wild because my kidney function was so low. We got to get that under control. We got to start getting a bit more active. Now, this time, severe anemia. That's why I was so weak. Severe anemia. And it was, I never want to go through that again. And he's like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to change your diet. Here's, we need to supplement some things that you're missing to help your body. And I started learning about red blood cells, hemoglobin, how those work, and how iron can help it. And we just went through a checklist, boom, 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 all these different things that I would start doing. And he told me, because he knew me, I'm a very outgoing person, as you can tell. I love it. And I can talk for a billion years. He said, James, you are going to beat this, and you're going to write a book to help others beat this, because he knew the kind of person I was. I did a lot of volunteer work, still do a lot of, And I picked him. I interviewed him when we moved to Cincinnati to find a doctor that wasn't going to just grab me a bottle of pills and say, hey, here's some opioids. Go have fun with them. You'll feel better. Because I kind of felt like in Ohio, every doctor was just prescribing opioids when we moved there, because there was an epidemic of it. I wanted one that was going to say, you know what? There's some other things we're going to try. We don't need to get to all these prescription medications right away. There are other things you can do that can help when they're part of a healthy lifestyle. So we made this plan. We started doing this stuff. He told me to document everything so I could write a book. Well, I hate writing. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to record video of all this. I grabbed my cell phone at the time and I hooked it up on a little tripod thing and I started talking to it as if it was me talking to the future, my future self.
Yeah.
So I'm giving, saying, hey, here's what happened. It was like a diary. Here's what I've learned, or here's what I'm learning. Here's what's working. Here's what's not working. Here's how I feel. And I looked awful. People on the internet can be extremely mean, no matter how nice and helpful you are. Yeah.
Oh, I know. I know.
Yeah. My first videos, you look at the comments, there's a lot of great ones saying, like, thank you for sharing. This gives me hope. I've seen your latest videos. I've seen how far you've come. But there's also you look awful. You shouldn't be on here. You're too ugly. Your face is sunken in. Your eyes are all dark. You're speaking so slow. Because I'm like at death's door sharing my story. I'm not up dancing and doing all this stuff and entertaining people. But there's those few mean ones out there. And it takes a while to get that shield up where you kind of just like, yeah, hey, you can't make everyone happy. Give away $1 million, someone's going to complain you didn't give away 2 million.
Yep.
But I started documenting it on video. And I'm like, okay, I'm not rich. These videos take up a lot of storage space. I need some place to store my videos. I'll just start putting them on YouTube. And people started finding them and it started growing. And I'd always had the idea of Dadvice TV.
Yeah.
I wanted to make videos to help kids grow up, help dads have kids. Because when you have a kid, there's all these books for mom, tons of books for mom, not many books for dad. How do I teach my kid to fly a kite? How do I teach my kid to ride a bike? That's what Dadvice TV was going to be. A dad's experience of, hey, here's how I learned to teach my kids to do this, a resource for dads. So I thought, you know what? I'm still a dad. I'm giving advice, my story, what worked, what didn't work. So I use that name for it. And I'm creative. I'm outgoing. I don't like to do things halfway. I like to overdo everything. And I started just building the channel. And I documented my way, got up to GFR 19. Woohoo! Oh, I remember celebrating that, being so happy. I remember breaking into the 20s, the early 20s. And I just kept going. And I'm working with all these people and making all these changes. I'm trying things. Some things didn't work. Some things worked great. Some things worked fantastic together when I did them. And I was able to get all the way up into the low 30s. Took about 2.5 years to get up there and to stay stable in the low 30s. And right now, my GFR is almost 4.5 years later. I've pretty much reversed my kidney disease. Instead of, hey, you're going to be dead in 45 days. Now it's like, hey, keep doing whatever you're doing. You may never, ever need dialysis. And we're probably going to have some other things to help before you ever need anything like that. Is keep doing what you're doing. But now I'm pretty much staying stable in the high 20s, low 30s, goes up and down. But I feel great. No symptoms. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Who cares if my GFR is 31 or 38 or 42? If I have no symptoms, I've got all my energy. I'm out there, I'm working, I'm having fun, I'm doing things with my kids, taking trips, going to the beach, building snowmen, doing all those fun things. I'm happy and I'm just living and loving life. And I've been sharing my story, hoping to find those people out there that go out and look on the internet and get scared. What they see on the dialysis centers is transplants and dialysis. That is not the only options, but those are the only things that work for them. Dialysis makes some money, especially here in the United States. Transplants, there's not very many kidneys, so it's kind of a rare thing to get that transplant and find one that matches can be very difficult. But I hope people will find my stories and see that I did it. And you can tell I'm still overweight. I'm not like a gym rat sitting there exercising and jogging every day and all that stuff, eating extremely strict and all that. No. I make mistakes all the time. Uh, I have, the challenges of life also on my shoulders, and those, the stress of all that. But with life, and I'm a regular person, I can still live a great life with lower kidney function. And people meet me and they're like, I cannot believe you were in kidney failure. You were doing that bad. And now look where you're at today. You can't look at me and tell. You're like, hey, that's just another McDonald's customer right there is eating too much. I'll take a break so you can ask questions.
No, I wanted you to share your story. I think it's really important. There's a couple of things I wanted to ask. I wanted you to share the dialysis story whenever you wanted to about the dialysis units, but also what are the things that you think made the biggest difference for you? The ones that you know that you cannot negotiate on? Because you've obviously found things you can negotiate.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have non-negotiables that just, that's why your eGFR went up?
So number one, easily, and it took a long time to figure this out because I would do things would improve, or they didn't improve right away. It took a while. Number one thing was I had to get my blood pressure under control, because out of control blood pressure is just going to continue to do damage to the kidneys. So I had to work with my doctors, get that under control. And then I had to work, diet played an important role, what I ate, and I've learned this over the last 2 years, I could easily fall off the wagon and it doesn't hurt me that much. If I fall, go off my diet and I eat something I shouldn't, as long as I don't go crazy with sodium. Sodium is one of those things that, for me, first of all, it spikes my blood pressure. It retains fluids. It makes it hard for me to sleep through the night because I'm constantly thirsty because I got too much sodium. Then that means I'm up peeing like every hour and a half. So I'm not getting a good night's sleep. So the blood pressure control and sodium are the two things that no matter what, I will not avoid. I will not miss any of my blood pressure pills. When I want to eat something, like if my kids want to go and have pizza or something, I'm thinking, okay, I got to be careful because that's a lot of sodium. So I'm going to cut way back the rest of the day and control how much pizza I eat. I'm not going to do it like I used to do. And I'm going to load it up on vegetables. I'm going to get me all the olives, every olive they got, every color, every type of olive, it's on there. The peppers, the bell peppers, the onions, all the goodies are on there. And I try to minimize, I try not to have meat on the ones that I eat just because they're always loaded with salt. And for me, it took a while, but meat on a pizza, when you have lots of veggies, you can't taste it. So you don't notice it when it's gone. But I'll tell you, your labs will show you that you didn't eat the meat. Or if you ate the meat, they'll show you did eat it.
Yeah. So
but I said, to me, those are the most important things that I, no matter what, will not stray from. And there's so many things that I know are so good for me that I don't do enough of. Well, one of them, so right now, fiber is a huge one. Fiber, I don't talk about it enough. I get all these dietitians on and we talk and we don't talk enough about fiber. To me, it's almost like magic, what fiber can do for you. And when I was eating a very high fiber diet, which my doctor wanted me on, my family doctor, the good one, the nephrologist I had was awful. So we only went to her for recommendations. And my doctor was the one who made all the calls, the one who told me you don't need dialysis. When I was on a high fiber diet, that was really when things were going well, because it's almost like a sponge and it grabs so much of the bad stuff and you poop it out instead of it getting absorbed in your blood and then your kidneys having to do it. Now, when you eat the good stuff or you take in good stuff, I felt it worked so much better because it didn't have to fight with as much of the bad stuff. But also, 2 years ago almost, because of COVID, I lost my job. The company I was with went under after almost 13 years there. All of a sudden, I'm unemployed. So there's a lot of stress and you got a little bit of depression. Like, okay, oh, I got to use my savings to pay for the mortgage, got to find a job. What's going to happen? There was a lot of that stress. So I was snacking a lot. That was a bad thing. Lots of carbs. I put on quite a bit of weight during that time. But I always kept an eye on my blood pressure, my sodium. I was like eating too much sugar because it was kind of like my go-to to kind of handle all the stress and all this, the life changes. So that was another thing I knew I shouldn't do, but it's like, I allowed myself, saw that Hershey bar, like, no one will notice. I'll eat it real quick. Of course, I notice it and keep packing on. And I cut back on the exercise I was doing. I got a job up here in Michigan, had to look at relocating, which is driving back and forth in states, looking at schools and neighborhoods, buying a house while I still had a house. We have dogs, we couldn't rent. We needed to move into something and didn't want to move the kids multiple times. So there's all the stress of that. So I'm not exercising. I'm sitting in my car. It's a almost 5-hour drive each way.
Oh, wow.
Every weekend, driving, boom, boom. There's 10 hours of sitting in the car every weekend. Plus you're driving around neighborhoods. You're sitting, not exercising. I was eating a lot of fast food during that time because you're not pulling over and making a salad or anything like that. You can, apples only go so far when you're on the road. There's a reason truckers look more like me now than what I used to when I was thinner. But yeah, so hopefully that, for people out there, blood pressure and sodium are two things I will not. There's no exceptions for that. I will, and I'll look at the sodium and I may have something like, this right here, 1,200 milligrams. I'll do it. I'll cut back early in the day and save sodium someplace else, but I'm not going to eat 3,000 milligrams of sodium in a day like I used to. And I probably even ate more than that back in the day.
Yeah, right. Okay, well, they're good tips. Now, what I loved about when we first started chatting was your big thing is about giving people hope. And I think you're obviously very tenacious and you're very practical with your research. And I think you're also a bit like me. You're willing to, if something doesn't feel right to you, you're willing to back yourself, which I think, I think they're the things that I wanted to express to people, that what I see. And I think, being able to take a risk when you've got a doctor saying you'll be dead in 45 days, to back yourself to know there's something else, I think is a really unusual trait in people, but it's what makes you really successful and following yourself. And I think that's why it's so great you've got your channel, because then people can almost piggyback off your personality to go, well, hang on, he did it. So I think that's why you're such a gift. But, in your research and things that you found, you were telling me, and, I've known this because I've had chats to people that run renal centers and nephrologists, but share what you found out, because you really did do this digging and part of your education.
Oh, yes.
So share some of that, because I think that was part of why you really were able to stick to your guns with stuff.
Oh, yeah. So, so before I get into that, when the doctor tells you your future is bleak, there is no option. Well, trying something else, what's the worst that can happen? They said I'd be dead. What's the worst? I die in 44 days instead of 45. At least I would go out trying. That's kind of my attitude. Mm-hmm. Doctors make mistakes. They're also generalizing, and they really don't know me. They don't know what I will do and what I'm willing to do. And I watch a lot of videos. There are people that come in, their heart's in bad shape. They weigh 600 plus pounds. The doctors tell them they need to eat better. They won't. I'm not that kind of person. I'm the kind of person that when they say, hey, you're going to die or change, I will change. And I did it right then and there. So one of the things that I did, which I found very eye-opening and disturbing, was I was very curious about, all these, I started finding there's a lot of things we can do, but the dialysis centers don't talk about them. They have their educational things. I think my daughter could do better, knows more about, educating people on how to live better with kidney disease than these big dialysis centers do right now. They're so focused on getting you to dialysis, and they'll talk about transplant or dialysis. We've got these different types of dialysis. You can do dialysis at home. They are so dialysis focused because they're a business and they're making money. And I was curious, what does it take to open a dialysis center? How much money do they make? So I reached out, and I've had businesses before. I had a restaurant in Seattle. My wife and we've had other businesses. I reached out to get information about opening up a dialysis center, and they're looking for them everywhere. And they're popping up all over the place. And they sent me a real thick thing, and I'm flipping through and I'm reading it. And there were several things that stood out right away. First, the word patient wasn't used. It was always customer. We were customers, people like me, people like those in your audience that are living with kidney disease and worried about their future. We're customers. We're not customers. We're people. We have families. We have lives. We have futures. That bothered me. And it glorified and talked about how diabetes is rampant in the United States, blood pressure, heart disease, all these things that lead to kidney damage and lead to people needing dialysis when they don't know that they need to take action earlier. And, they could then avoid the need for dialysis. It talked about that, this unlimited number of new customers always coming in, always needing dialysis. And I wouldn't have to worry about nurses and doctors on staff. The requirements are low enough. If there's an emergency, you just dial 911. You don't have to take care of it. You're here to get more customers, meet these minimums, and cash the checks. That's pretty much what it said. And that, I don't want to cuss, that made me very unhappy. I'm a person. I'm not a customer. I'm not a source of revenue. Why aren't the dialysis centers out there talking about, hey, your doctor says stage 2, here's things you should be doing. You need to be talking to a dietitian, or talking to this, or doing this, or considering this. Blood sugar, let's get this under control early. Let's work on your blood pressure. Let's work on this. Why aren't they required to do more of that? And I kind of felt like, well, if they're not going to do it, I'm going to do it. And I decided I am going to be the most hated person for those people who run these franchises, because I want to cut down on the number of customers they can have by giving people, the hope and the motivation and the inspiration to take action, to be their own advocate, to make changes in their life, to avoid needing dialysis. And so many people, if they can do things early enough, they could do that. We don't need a dialysis center on every corner, especially in the poor neighborhoods around here. There are so many dialysis centers just taking advantage of, these people don't have enough money to eat healthy. They're going to eat these higher carbs, higher sugar foods, and they're going to get diabetes, and there's more money for us as a dialysis center. That's my perception of it.
Yeah.
And others that I talk to have the exact same perception. But yeah, it just breaks my heart that they're taking advantage of people. We're at our weakest when we're ill. We're looking for hope. We're looking for something. And there are things that we can do. There are people who can help us, but they focus on dialysis and getting you in there too early many times, which doesn't improve your quality of life or your life expectancy.
No.
But yeah, that's my kind of my story with the dialysis centers here in the United States. I wish they would do more. They get so much money from the government, so much from our tax dollars. They should be held to a higher standard to help educate people to not need dialysis. Dialysis should not be the next step on anyone's plan. It should be there's no other choice. We have dialysis here to save your life. That's what it should be.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with that. And I think the thing that I really take away with you is if you've got them, and when you said you're told you've got 45 days to live and you've got two little kids, what more inspiration, motivation do you need than that? But for anyone even that doesn't, just knowing that there are things that we can do. I mean, you've gone from an 8 back up into the low 30s. We are told, and nephrologists will tell most patients that is impossible, that kidney disease doesn't reverse, that nephrons cannot heal. And all of this information, as we know over and over again, is not true. So the whole narrative around kidney disease is geared towards these dialysis units and for people giving up their hope and handing their lives over. But, you and I have got the same cause there, that is just not our reality. And it's actually not true. And so I think, you're such a great ambassador of that.
Oh, glad to hear that. Yeah. I want, one word that I try to avoid is the word cure, because, my kidneys are still bad. They're not great, but they're working so well now that I could go decades. I could be into my 70s or 80s. Don't want to say how old I am now. I could be 70s or 80s before I have to start worrying about, now things are getting kind of bad, because you're getting older, they're wearing, your kidney function naturally declines. But there is so much that people can do, and there's more than what I've done. What I've done is just what my doctor has recommended, and it's worked for me. And I know nephrologists have told me it's not possible. There's no way your GFR was that low and you weren't on dialysis. I refuse. I absolutely refuse. I told the doctor I refuse to go on dialysis. I'll come in every day. You can do labs. We'll see where they go. If it gets back down to 8, then we will do it. And I don't want it in my neck. If it starts going down, let's do the arm thing. I didn't know, what any of this is called. I'm just like, I'm in the ICU trying to research and learn. And anyway, the good news is anyone out there who's listening, don't give up. Yeah. There's people out there who are just like me who have done what doctors say is impossible. They used to say a man could never, ever fly. Then we got the airplane. We got rockets. We got rockets freaking landing themselves now. 20 years ago, that was impossible. No way. Could never do that. Now they're doing it all the time. Yeah. So have hope. Don't give up.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I think people like you are really, really important to the world. So I appreciate you sharing the message. Is there anything else that you want to share or you feel like has been really important in your journey that you really want people to get before we wrap up?
Yeah, one last thing. Stress is difficult on your kidneys. Your body, when you handle stress, your kidneys feel the stress. So find ways to manage your stress. And when I lost my job, I had to find, we had to move, find a new house. That was a lot of stress. And my doctor told me, hey, I don't like you overeating and all this snacking, but that's helping you manage your stress. It's okay. Don't stress out over the gaining extra pounds. But soon, when you get the stress under control, we're going to work on that and get those extra pounds gone. So find ways to keep yourself happy, things that you enjoy doing. Stop and make time for those things that you can do them. It could be visiting family, spending time with the kids, making memories, doing things that you didn't really want to do before, like the idea of, 5 years ago, me taking my kids to a beach and looking for fossils and rocks and stuff like that would have been like, what? No. Now I'm like, yeah, that's a memory. I'm going to make memories of my kids. And I value every day being here. And I want everyone out there to know you mean something. You are important. And there are always people who care. If you feel you're alone, you're not alone. There's a whole community of kidney warriors out here ready to help support you in whatever you need. So don't let stress get to you. Even the darkest night will end and the sun will rise. So that's kind of my saying whenever I get too down. going to get better. And it does every time. Might take a little while, but things always get better.
Yeah, I think that's such a great message. And you're so right about stress. So thank you for sharing that. Well, James, it's been a pleasure. And we're always grateful to have people in the world like you that just will buck the trend and challenge the norms and then set a new norm, which is what we need. So thank you for being you and being a big ray of sunshine to the kidney community. I think you're very needed. If you want to know more about what James does, you can go to YouTube and look at Dadvice TV. I'll put the link in below. He's got so many great videos on there and some great interviews. So it's a really amazing resource for anyone diagnosed with kidney disease. Remember to hit subscribe and like for us. It means anytime we put up a new video, you will get notified. If you want to know more about what we do, head to www.kidneycoach.com. Thank you for being part of our community. Until next time, we appreciate you all. Keep up the good work. And James, thanks again. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.